Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something quite special, looking at this intersection of ancient history, belief, and some, well, frankly, astonishing folklore.
That's right.
Our source today is specific, very influential. Part 3, Chapter 19 of Sir James George Frazer's huge work, Folklore in the Old Testament.
A classic.
And the chapter title alone hooks you in, Jehovah and the Lions.
It certainly does. And our goal here, our, let's say, mission for this deep dive, is really to unpack that story, the lions in Samaria, but using Frazer's comparative approach.
Sure.
We want to see how looking at this biblical narrative alongside other traditions, sometimes from completely different parts of the world, gives us these really profound insights. Insights into, ancient religious thinking, ideas about gods, and how people everywhere tried to make sense of the divine.
Frazer was just brilliant at that, wasn't he? Seeing the patterns.
Uniquely so. Connecting dots nobody else saw.
Okay, so to really get Frazer's approach here, we have to start where he starts, which is this pretty dramatic story in 2 Kings chapter 17. So picture Samaria. It's just fallen to the Assyrians. They've deported the Israelites. The cities are, well, basically empty.
Desolate, yeah.
And the Assyrian king decides to repopulate. He sends in colonists, people from Babylonia, from Syria. New people, new place.
And that's immediately where the trouble starts.
Yeah.
These new settlers, they get there and they keep worshiping their old gods, their home gods. They don't pay any attention to Jehovah, who the text specifically calls the God of the land. And this wasn't just like an oversight. It was seen as serious disrespect, a real violation of the local god's rights over his own territory.
It's like ignoring the landlord, but on a cosmic scale.
Exactly, a spiritual trespassing, if you will.
And the consequence.
Yeah.
Wow. It's dramatic. Jehovah sends lions.
Lions.
And these aren't just random wild animals. The text makes it clear they're sent, divine agents. Frazer points this out with his typical dryness, saying something like, however singular the choice of such missionaries may seem to us, it answered the purpose perfectly.
Certainly got results.
You bet. Lions mauling people tends to get your attention, right? Some of the settlers were killed.
Absolutely. And their reaction is immediate. And it tells you so much about their worldview. They instantly recognize these lions weren't just hungry animals. Yeah. They saw them as ministers of vengeance, sent by the local deity because they'd messed up. They'd infringed on his rights.
So they knew it was divine punishment.
Oh, completely. But they didn't know how to fix it. How do you appease this particular god? So they send this urgent message back to the Assyrian king.
And the message itself is fascinating. Can you remind us what they said?
Yeah, it's quoted directly. The nations which thou hast carried away and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. Therefore he hath sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the God of the land.
Know not the manner. That phrase is key, isn't it? It's not just about belief, it's about practice, ritual, knowing the right way to do things for this specific God.
Precisely. It's a plea for technical religious instruction. How do we operate correctly in this spiritual territory?
So the king gets this message. Lions are killing his colonists because they don't know the local religious customs. What's his response?
His response is just as telling. He doesn't send soldiers or, exterminators for the lions.
Yeah.
He commands that one of the priests whom you brought from thence, meaning one of the exiled Israelite priests, be sent back to Bethel.
To teach
them the manner of the God of the land.
That immediately tells you, doesn't it? They understood this wasn't just about dangerous animals, it was spiritual. And you needed a specialist, a native specialist.
A native specialist, exactly. Someone who knew the local divine protocols. So this Israelite priest comes back, settles in Bethel, teaches them how to worship Jehovah. And the text implies, the historian sort of leads us to infer, that once these services started, the lion attack stopped.
Problem solved.
Okay.
Solved.
Well, yeah, there's that interesting little detail later. The historian, or maybe he was a later editor, adds that even after learning about Jehovah, the colonists kept worshiping their own gods, too.
Right, and verses 29 to 33, a kind of religious hedging, maybe?
Perhaps, or just a continuation of their own traditions alongside the new required ones. But the core point for Frazer, the really fascinating thing, is that immediate recognition. This land has its God. His power is here. And only the natives truly know how to deal with him. That concept of the localized deity.
Okay, so let's zoom out like Frazer does. This incident in Samaria, it's not just a one-off weird story.
Not at all. For Frazer, it's a perfect illustration of a really widespread ancient Semitic belief The idea that fundamentally every land has its own local deity.
And crucially,
And crucially, that deity can only be propitiated by the natives of the country. Why? Because they alone are acquainted with the particular form of religious ritual which he expects and requires.
it's like spiritual jurisdiction. Each god has its territory and its specific rules.
Exactly. It's a fundamental principle of how they saw the world working, not just in Samaria, but across many cultures.
And this is where Frazer brings in his comparative evidence, which is always so illuminating. He doesn't just leave it with the Semitic context.
No, he casts the net much wider. He wants to show this isn't just one culture's idea, but maybe something deeper, more universal in human religious thought.
So where does he take us first?
He takes us to the Toradjas of Central Celebes, that's Sulawesi in modern Indonesia.
Okay.
And among the Toradjas, there's this belief that every district has its own earth spirit, or rather earth spirits, plural even.
Multiple local spirits.
Right. And here's the key part. These spirits can only be invoked by members of the tribe which inhabits the district. It's exclusive.
Just like the Samaria situation implies.
Precisely. Frazer gives a very concrete example. If a stranger comes into a Toradja district and wants to start a new rice field,
Which is a pretty big deal, messing with the earth.
a very big deal, that stranger absolutely must get help from a native garden priest.
Yeah.
Has to. Because, as the Toradjic explain it, such a stranger does not know how he ought to invoke the spirit of that land. He is not yet accustomed to that earth spirit. The spirit is particular. It has its ways, and only the locals know them, if you get it wrong.
Bad news for your crops. Or worse.
Probably worse, yeah. It links survival, land, and the supernatural directly to local knowledge and local intermediaries.
Okay, so that's one parallel. Where else?
Then he takes us further afield to West Africa, to the aboriginal tribes of the Upper Niger Valley.
Right.
Here, the earth itself is seen as a really important deity, and its worship is managed by a specific priest called the Chief of the Earth.
The chief of the earth. Sounds important.
Very. This person is usually the religious head of the community, even if not the political chief. It's their job to offer sacrifices for crops, for rain, vital things, and also to make atonement if something bad happens, like spilling human blood on the earth, which is a major taboo.
So they're the go-between.
They are the indispensable intermediary between the gods and the people. Without the chief of the earth doing their job correctly, the connection is broken. Things go wrong.
Now, this leads to a really interesting dynamic when conquest happens, doesn't it? Something that mirrors Samaria again.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Frazer points out that even when the Mossi people invaded and conquered large areas inhabited by these tribes.
The Mossi being the military power now.
Exactly. Even with their king, the Moro Naba, holding political sway, guess who continued to hold the crucial priesthood of the earth?
Let me guess. Members of the original conquered tribe.
You got it. Members of the old aboriginal race. Because the Mossi conquerors themselves, including the king, believed they were simply not qualified to offer sacrifices to the earth god of the place and the local divinities.
Wow, so the conquerors deferred to the conquered on religious matters.
On this critical religious matter, yes. They recognized that only the ancient owners of the soil, the original inhabitants, had the necessary connection, the know-how, to keep the local earth god happy.
That's incredible. Political power doesn't automatically grant spiritual authority over the land.
Not in this worldview. So the old leader of the conquered group often became the religious chief under the new rulers. It was pragmatic spiritual necessity. They needed the original folks to handle the divine interface for that specific location.
It really drives home that idea of localized spiritual knowledge being paramount. Okay, so connecting all this back, what does it tell us about the priest sent back to Bethel, the one dealing with the lion problem?
Well, Frazer points out that the Bible doesn't actually describe the specific rites and ceremonies that Israelite priests performed.
No, just that he taught them the manner of Jehovah.
Right. But Frazer says, okay, we don't know the specifics, but we can compare the intention, the underlying purpose. What was he trying to achieve?
Appeasing the local deity, stopping the attacks, restoring order.
Exactly. And to understand that kind of intention, Frazer introduces yet another group, the Baigas, or Baigas, from the central provinces of India.
Okay, who are the Baigas?
Frazer describes them as among the wildest of the primitive Dravidian tribes, living deep in forests, very traditional, armed with bows, known for shunning agriculture, very secluded. And crucially, they're seen by others, like the Gonds, as the most ancient inhabitants.
The original people again.
The original people. And because of that, they're often the priests of the indigenous gods. They hold this acknowledged superiority in spiritual matters concerning the land.
So they're the ones who know the manner of the local spirits there.
Precisely. And Frazer details a specific Baiga ritual that's directly relevant. It's a ritual for laying the ghost of a man who has been killed by a tiger.
Okay.
But it's not just about the ghost. The ritual is also believed to keep the tiger from doing any more harm. It addresses both the spiritual residue and the physical threat.
So how does it work? It sounds intense.
It is. The Baiga priest goes to the spot where the killing happened. He brings offerings, fowls, rice. Then he makes a little cone shape out of the actual blood-stained earth from the spot. This represents the dead man. Then he gets down on his hands and knees and performs these antics, as Frazer puts it, basically mimicking the tiger attacking and killing the man. He even grabs the earth cone in his teeth.
Wow. A reenactment.
A ritual reenactment. Then a helper taps him on the back with a stick, which symbolically means the tiger is now rendered harmless. The earth cone representing the victim is then put into an anthill. A pig is sacrificed over it, and the next day, they take a chicken, mark it with red ochre and the dead man's name, and release it into the forest shouting, "Take this and go home."
It's incredibly detailed, very visceral. What's the core belief behind all that performance?
The Baigas believe that if they don't do this, if the ghost isn't properly laid to rest, it will actually ride on the tiger's head.
Ride on the tiger's head.
Yeah, and incite the tiger to kill again. The ghost makes the tiger more dangerous, more aggressive, and even uses its own preternatural watchfulness to protect the tiger from hunters.
So the spiritual problem directly empowers the physical threat. The ghost and the tiger become a single deadly entity, almost.
Exactly. There's this direct causal link they perceive between the unsettled spirit and the ongoing danger from the animal. The ritual aims to break that link.
So bringing us back to Samaria and the Israelite priest, Frazer isn't saying the priest did that ritual, obviously.
No, absolutely not. He's very clear. We can't assume the Israelite priest performed a similar pantomime. The cultural context, the theology, it's all different.
What?
But Frazer suggests the underlying principle might be comparable. He argues that the rites the Israelite priests did perform, whatever they were likely believed to be neither less nor more effectual than those which the jungle priests of Mandia, another region where Baigas lived, still observe for a like purpose.
Meaning the purpose was the same, using specialized local religious knowledge to neutralize a threat perceived as having both a physical and a supernatural dimension, dispatched by an offended local deity.
Precisely. Understanding the Baiga ritual helps us appreciate the kind of thinking that might have been operating. It helps us see, as Frazer says, the gross religious impropriety of those settlers just ignoring Jehovah initially.
Because they weren't just ignoring a god, they were ignoring a fundamental rule about respecting the local spiritual authority, a rule understood implicitly in many different cultures.
Right. So when Frazer concludes it's no wonder that Jehovah was nettled at such treatment and took strong measures, he's framing Jehovah's actions not just within Israelite theology, but within this broader, ancient understanding of territorial gods defending their turf.
It certainly puts a different perspective on the whole lions as missionaries thing, but it does lead to some tricky questions about divine actions themselves, sending lions to kill people.
Yeah, it definitely challenges modern ethical sensibilities.
How does Frazer handle that discomfort? Does he just explain it away with cultural context?
He confronts it directly, actually. It leads to one of his most provocative, concluding thoughts. He acknowledges the ethical issue, saying something like, whether the dispatch of lions to devour dissenters was the best possible means to promote pure religion is a question which might perhaps admit of discussion.
Understatement of the century, maybe?
Perhaps. He's acknowledging the moral difficulty, but then he offers his crucial interpretative principle, the lens through which he thinks we must view these things. A god like a man, he says.
A god like a man. That's a bold comparison.
It is. A god, like a man, can only be fairly judged by the standard of the age to which he belongs.
Judged the deity by the ethics of its time.
Yes. Because, he argues based on observation, experience seems to show that the ethical code of a deity is seldom superior and may be distinctly inferior to that of his human contemporaries.
Wow, that's quite a statement. God's ethics might be lower than human ethics at the time.
Or at least, no better. Reflecting the values and limitations of the culture that conceived of that deity, it's a call for radical historical contextualization, asking us not to judge ancient divine actions by our standards, but by theirs. It doesn't excuse the actions, but it attempts to understand them within their own framework.
That really changes how you might read not just this story, but a lot of difficult passages in ancient texts.
Absolutely. It's a challenging idea.
So, wrapping up this deep dive on Jehovah and the lions, what Frazer's done is take this one biblical incident and, through comparison, shown us this widespread ancient belief in gods tied to specific territories.
Right, and the absolutely critical role of native priests or specialists who hold the key to dealing with those local powers.
We've seen parallels from Indonesia, West Africa, India, all pointing to similar ideas about land, spirit, and the need for proper local ritual knowledge.
It shows how these seemingly very different cultures were grappling with similar fundamental questions about how to live safely and prosperously in a world they saw as filled with powerful, localized supernatural forces.
So the final thought to leave you, our listener, with: how might taking Frazer's final point seriously, this idea of judging a deity by the standard of the age, change how you approach other ancient stories, other sacred texts?
It's not about undermining faith, necessarily, but about deepening understanding. How does seeing these narratives as products of their specific time and place, reflecting the ethics and worldview of that era, enrich our reading? Does it help make sense of actions or commands that seem jarring today? That's something worth pondering. What really resonates with you from this exploration?